But we moved to the farm, and I became, of course, a father also when I got married. I have two daughters. My oldest daughter, I met her when she was 3. I've never cared for the term stepdaughter. I don't think it's offensive or hurtful or anything. I think what I've written is that the term is perfectly adequate for conveying the situation. It is utterly inadequate for conveying the heart. And I have a poet friend who gave me the gift of a wonderful word when he told me one day, she's not your stepdaughter, she's your given daughter. And I love that term, and I love that girl. And she's an interesting little kid. You know, they're all different, you all know that. She's tough in the sense she goes deer hunting with me, she'll track a deer, she'll gut a deer, she'll cut up a deer, but she's got a very gentle soul and a very delicate heart. And she's in tears once or twice a week at bedtime, and it's always about someone else. She worries about the world. So you have to be careful with her. On the other hand, I have a 4-year-old who's basically got the personality of a D4 cat. She's like a bulldozer in a pink tutu. She doesn't care about your feelings. I know, because I'm on the road a lot, and the other day I had to leave for about 5 days, and so I went upstairs to say goodbye to the family. I had the car all packed, feeling a little bit bad about leaving. Walked up the stairs to bid adieu, and I could hear the 4-year-old up in the bedroom. My wife's up there with her, and I step into the bedroom to say goodbye. And she just doesn't even skip a beat. She just turns and goes, Daddy, Mommy and I are trying to have a conversation. You have to go. All right then, struggle on. She was born at home in our old farmhouse. Not my idea. We live in this old rickety slantways farmhouse out at the end of it. It's very remote. You have to go up a long dead-end road, and then our driveway commences at the end of the dead end, and you go more and wind back, and eventually there's our house. And I call it slantways because it originally was a log cabin built in the 1800s, and that part of the house still exists and is wonderful. It's in the center of the house. You can still see the hand-hewn logs, and they're broad as a boar's back, and they lend the house a great solidity at the center, and it's very comforting. Since 1880, there have been a number of remodels and modifications committed by people you wouldn't necessarily refer to as carpenters. And as a result, the house got a lot of mismatched windows and crooked floors and stuff. The best way to describe it is that if you're standing in our kitchen and you want to go into the living room, you got to step up a little 4-inch riser. You step up that riser, you're in the living room now, you go past the wood stove, down around the center of the house, down the hallway, past the bathroom, back into the kitchen, where you will find yourself back at that little 4-inch riser, having never actually gone down a 4-inch riser. So I tell people it's kind of like living inside an M.C. Escher drawing. You just keep going up that step and you never actually get anywhere. So one day we're standing in this old house. When we moved there, we moved in the dead of winter, and my wife was very pregnant, and we're standing in the center of that old house, and the wind is blowing and the snow is piling up, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, and my wife says, I want to have this baby in this house. And I said, that's a quote. And but I could see the resolve in her eyes, and ultimately we did have the child right there upstairs. I remember when we were rehearsing for the whole deal there, we were rehearsing. I got to looking around, and there was my wife, and there was the midwife, there was the midwife's assistant, there was the midwife's student, there was my wife's mom, there was my mom, there was my wife's best friend, there was my daughter. And at one point I did the count, and I said it was running 8-1, girls against boys. And so I told my wife, I want a doula. Some of you know what a doula is. My understanding is a doula is usually a woman who's there to support the woman giving birth in any way she needs, physically, spiritually, whatever she needs, she's there. I told my wife, I want a doula. And my wife said, well, that's fine. Who do you have in mind? I said, my buddy Mills. My buddy Mills have a friendship going on its third decade, and it's based primarily on the fact we've been making ambulance calls together for 22 years and also shooting carp with bows and arrows. That's where our friendship really bonded. But the deal is, in all my years of being a nurse and an EMT, I'd never actually even witnessed a live birth. My own daughter would be the first, and Mills, on the other hand, has actually delivered 6 children in the field. And so I called him, I said, Mills, I want you to be my doula. It was just quiet on the other end. He said, finally he goes, well, what's a doula? I said, well, during the birth of my child, you have to tend to my spiritual needs. He said, well, I can do that. So the day came, I said, Mills, it's time. And my doula showed up wearing black Crocs, camel pants, a greasy ball cap, and he had 3 days worth of papers and a big gulp mug. And I told him, you can't actually be in the room unless things go south. So while we had the baby in the house, he sat in the garage and read newspapers. But it truly was a comfort to have him there, because we've been looking at each other across the cot of an ambulance for 20-some years, and if things had gone wrong, he was the guy I wanted. And I'm happy to say everything went just fine. She was delivered fairly speedily, and people asked me, what did you think the moment you first saw your daughter? And I know what I'm supposed to say. But what I thought was, holy cripe, when she's 18, I'll be 60. But it's been interesting. The children have pushed I have a wonderful, wonderful marriage. I'm the luckiest knucklehead ever. There's one area in our marriage where we struggle, and I'm not even being funny. It's actually really tough, and that is that we both have very different outlooks on medicine. I'm kind of as you might imagine, a Western medicine sort of farm boy turned nurse guy. I'm open to alternative practices. I'm open to home birth. I'm open to a lot of different things. But I'm a little bit of a skeptic. My wife, on the other hand, she's a Fall Creek farm girl. She grew up baling hay. As a matter of fact, there's an old timer who lives next to me. He's 82 years old, and she used to be on his hay crews growing up. And he and his wife have become sort of second parents to my wife. And early on in the courtship, when I went over to meet them, it was kind of like a meet the parents moment. And then one day, that 82-year-old guy, he pulled me aside and he said that, that girl was on my hay crews for 5 years. She outworked every man I ever hired. And I realized that was not so much a testament to her character as a challenge to my own. But she's a Falkirk farm girl, but she's more educated than I am, and she spent time in Central America studying shamanism and alternative medicine. And so we sometimes have a hard time working out exactly how we're going to approach things. I think the way I sum it up is the kid will look a little peaked, and she'll say, well, I think we should burn some sage. And I say, can't we just go to urgent care? But the problem is my wife is strong. I can't just push her around. She's what you might call forthright. Recently, I had a buddy of mine turned 50. He's 5 years older than me, and he turned 50, and he's got thick hair and a ponytail, and he plays hockey, and he's very fit, and he's moping around. I'm turning 50, and it's just awful, and I'm so old. And one day I said to my wife, I said, he's moping around about turning 50. I said, he's 5 years older than me. I said, he looks younger than I do. And she said, yeah? A hesitation of 1/8 of a second would have been nice, I thought. 2 years ago, when I was in high school, I ran the mile, and I ran the mile one time in high school in 4 minutes and 48 seconds. And so I thought, a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm going to see what the old man can still do. So I trained. And I went down to this mile race, and all I wanted to do was break 6 minutes. And I ran the mile in 5 minutes and 58 seconds. And I was happy about that. And so then I took a year off. But then last year I decided I'm going to try it again, see if I can improve my time. So I trained even harder, and I went down and I ran the race, and I ran the mile in 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So I'm walking back to my car, and this guy walks up and he goes, "Hey, you didn't pick up your medal." I said, "My medal?" He goes, "Yeah, you placed third in your age group." "Oh, great." So I called my wife, and she's like, "Well, how did it go?" I said, "Great." I said, I took 8 seconds off my time from 2 years ago, and I placed third in my age group. And she says, "Well, how many people were in this race?" So I call her the great calibrator. So now you know where the 4-year-old got it from. The 4-year-old recently was taking medicine she didn't like, and so I was trying every trick in the book to get her to take it, and finally on the third day, she'd pitch a fit, man, and on the third day I finally did what I swore I'd never do. I said, "Can't you just drink your medicine like a big girl?" And she went, poof, knocked it right back. So I thought, well, all right. So the next day she's fussing and fighting. I said, "Can't just drink your medicine like a big girl." Poof, knocked her right back. The third day she's fussing and fighting. I said, "Just drink your medicine like a big girl." And she looked at me and said, "When you're a big girl, you can drink it." My favorite story about her being born in the house there was that my oldest daughter, as I mentioned, we have what they call nowadays a blended family, and I'll just give you the shorthand version, which is I'm grateful to say that we're all on good terms. My oldest daughter has 2 little brothers in Colorado. She's got her dad is out there, and he's married to a wonderful woman, and we stay in close communication, and we visit each other, and matter of fact, they're coming here in just a couple of weeks, and I'm very grateful for that situation because it makes things a lot easier, but it also yielded one of my favorite quotes of all time. My oldest knows that she's free to talk about her dad in front of me. There's no sort of undercurrent because I like her dad. And my wife is upstairs. She's just delivered the new child. Everything kind of settles in. We're in the bedroom, and of course we've been keeping our other family in Colorado updated. And my oldest daughter says, "Can I call my dad and tell him?" I said, "Yeah, give him a call." And I listen, and she runs downstairs, she picks up the phone, and I can hear him answer, and she says, "Well, you're a dad again." But I think the thing with the kids, I don't have anything grand or original to say about having children. But what I've noticed, at least in my life, I'm an imperfect dad, and is that they do calibrate you. They give you perspective. But they also, the thing I think I wasn't prepared for is how they break your heart with joy. I think of my youngest, I was with her, she was 3, and we went to Menards. I said, "Daddy's gonna take you to Menards, and we're gonna take the pickup truck." And we walk into Menards, and she's holding my hand, and it was fall, and they had put up the Christmas display. And up in the mezzanine, they had a big inflatable snowman, and they had an inflatable Santa that waves like this. And we're walking in there, and she goes, "Oh, Daddy, Santa Claus, a snowman." I said, "Yeah, that's pretty nice." And I turned to walk, and I said, "Come on, we need to go." And she doesn't follow me, and I turn back, and she's looking at that Santa Claus, and she's just waving. And her eyes are so wide open and so honest. And I'm standing there in Menards with tears going, and I'm going, "You have got to get it together, Sparky. This is, like, come on, let's go price cock guns." But there's these little moments that you're not ready for, and what I mean by break your heart with joy is it's something that you're happy for, you're glad it happened, but you also understand that what it means is they're just speeding away. And the most recent one was the little one, she's real short, and she had learned to take herself to the bathroom, which is a great victory, but she couldn't reach the light. And so we got her one of those light sticks, some of you will be familiar, they got a little piece of lath with a hole in one end and a notch, and they can either pull the switch down or up, depending. And that was a major victory, because now when she had to go to the bathroom, Dad didn't have to get his lard out of the recliner, man. She could just turn the light on and off. And so one day, she had gone in the bathroom, and without getting too specific, whatever she had done in there required additional assistance. Or as she puts it, I have a surprise for you. But I went in there, and when I got done, doing what needed to be done, and thank goodness for all my hazmat training as a firefighter. We go to leave, and she's ahead of me, and she's excited. She goes, Daddy, watch. And she gets to the bathroom door, and she gets way up on her tippy toes, and she grabs the light switch and goes, Poof. She said, I can do it myself. And I said, out loud, I just said, oh, you're such a big girl. And inside my heart broke a little bit, because you just see her going away. And then I'm on the road a lot, about 80 to 100 days a year. It's not a big deal. I'm very grateful. I love what I do. It's not a hardship. As a matter of fact, we talk, especially with my older one, about dads and moms who are truckers, and they're gone every week. And we talk, too, about people like my cousin Steve, who's about to go on his 4th deployment. And he's got little tykes like mine at home. And so I know that I'm lucky to do what I do. And my big thank you to you tonight is that when I do go home and I've been away for a few days, I get to tell my little girls about the nice people I met, and that we all laughed together. And I appreciate that. Because there are times when I'm driving alone at night, which I do a lot, when I think of my little girls, and I think about what I want them to know. And I think, first of all, I want them to know that Dad was in over his head. Constantly and in all respects. And that his learning curve lagged behind his balding curve. And I want them to know that he was ever so grateful for their beautiful mother. And I want them to know that they should beware youthful boys and dissolute men, because they are knuckle-headed and inept in every respect except for their ability to worm their way into a sweet girl's heart. And I want them also to always have a good pair of boots. Because inevitably life will require that you run close to the ground in adverse conditions. But above all, I hope they will know that their mother and I enjoyed watching them grow, even as we grieved their speeding away. And also, my daughters, I hope that someday they come to realize that there were many times when I was instructing them in the ways of righteousness at great length, when their mother snuck around behind them over to the refrigerator there just so she could roll her eyes at me. I have one more story to tell, and then we'll go on our way. But before I do that, I just want to say thanks. I never set out to do any of this. I never set out to write. I never set out to stand up here and yap. And I just really am deeply grateful that you came out tonight, and we just set these little things up and hope people show up, and you kind of caught us off guard here. Thank you.